Well, welcome to the Faithful Fathering Podcast. My name is Rick Wertz, founder and president of Faithful Fathering, where we encourage and equip dads to be faithful fathers. That is, a dad that prioritizes physical presence, is engaged emotionally, and leads spiritually by example. Our vision is to engage dads in raising a godly generation and reinvigorate the church on the fathering front. And this is our last series of podcasts on the seasons of fathering. If you're just tuning in for the first time, then we've been touching on what I call the seasons of fathering. The teacher season is the first 10 years of a child's life, where our children trust us completely. We're God. They don't question anything. And it gives us our chance to instill our family values, our faith, our discipline, so that we can prepare them with a rock-solid foundation for the next 10 years that I call the coaching season. That's the time where we're starting to coach them through all of a sudden these outside influences that start to impact the way our kids respond. And so we're coaching them back to why we provided this foundation and working through these outside influences. And today we're talking about the counselor season. That's the third 10 years, usually around age 20 or so, and that's where we realize that we don't have the power to step in and call timeout and change the play. We have to wait for the phone to ring and provide counsel. We're blessed today to have in the studio with us Jarrad Gibler, father of four, sharing his insight in this season of fathering, and also is a part of Uprising Society. Jarrad, welcome.
Sir. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about you and what you've been up to.
Well, all right. So yes, father of four amazing kids. We actually had an additional son with us for 3 years. My wife and I have been pastors for a long time and did some inner city outreach and had a young man come live with us for a while through that. But right now, like you said, I work with Mike, and my wife and I are in the process of starting our own nonprofit and house church.
Fantastic. Well,
Yes,
that's a ministry for sure. There can't be enough church in society.
Right.
As we look at raising kids, you can tell me again the ages of your kids. What's the where are the parameters here?
Sure. We have all boys. Our youngest is 13. Then we have one will be 15 next month, and then 24 and 26. So a little bit of a gap there, but it's good.
Fantastic.
When they're all together, they all act like the 13-year-old. So
the lowest common denominator, right? That's kind of the way it is. But so you're in the heart of the coaching season and the counselor season,
yes.
With grown adult kids. So one of the areas I've always seen, and one of the challenges dads face, I see, and I want your thoughts on this. When it comes to they're graduating from high school, they're young adults, they're making decisions. One of the biggest decisions they make is what type of further education do I pursue? What's been your experience? How have you helped counsel your boys through that phase?
Sure. So, well, our oldest two, actually, one of them did complete his degree, and one of them did not. And it was probably a little different for me to handle that than it was for my wife, because I'm actually more of a creative type. And so I started college and then left to pursue a music career for a short time. And that was, for what I wanted to do, that was the right decision to make. And for our oldest son, he wanted to be a school teacher, so he needed a degree. And so finishing his degree was something he needed to do. Whereas for our 24-year-old, he wanted to pursue his career in videography, and being more of that artistic mindset, the better education he was going to get was actually going to be outside of a traditional school setting. And so I guess it was easy for me to encourage him in that and see him take those steps. Probably a little bit harder for my wife, but she's seen his success and the blessing that has been, so she's definitely come around on that.
So your creative nature sensitized you that there's other ways.
Yes, for sure.
And at the same time, you're very tuned into your child's unique giftedness, whether one might be a more structured environment moving into an educational system, one was more of an artistic environment that required some outside experience, just school of hard knocks, if you will, to before. I can imagine you took a lot of hard knocks in the music industry,
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
What was that journey like?
It was interesting. It was really hard at first. I was blessed to have parents who really spoke into my gifting and wanted to see me, take that journey and see where it went. And it was hard at first, mainly because of the outside voices who said, no, this is the only way. Like you graduate high school and then you go to college, and that is the only legitimate education that there is out there. I think our culture has changed a lot since then, and it's good that we now advocate and legitimize other forms of education. There's still a lot of that needs to be done on that front, but I took that step and had a good group of friends around me, people around me, to encourage me, and we just went for it. Got to travel with some different bands and do studio work and things like that. And most of them were good, upstanding individuals. So, never got off. And most of them, yes. As a matter of fact, as I got older and started having kids, it was the other influences. Like, maybe it's time for me to get out of this and focus more on ministry, because we were doing the two concurrently.
What a blessing your parents were so sensitive to that in two ways. One, recognizing your unique giftedness, and second is realizing that it's your success, whether it's success or failure, it's part of your education.
Right.
So allowing our children to fail, I think, is one of the toughest things of letting this decision kind of take shape. And and you're exactly right. I mean, the mantra, must go to college, must get a degree, that strapped a lot of kids with a lot of debt, right? And I know my daughter's been out of school for 14 years, and she still has friends that are strapped with student loan debt, and because they were, and the point was the degree may not ever be of a substantial nature to allow them to pay off the debt that they incurred because they thought this was what they were supposed to do. Yes. So, but you're right. I mean, the key is the sensitivity to understand that there are a lot of options. I mean, you've got the VOTEC route. You could vocationally learn how to weld, mechanics, whatever. I've got a couple of nephews that are doing quite well as welders and pipe fitters and what have you. These are valuable positions and
essential positions,
and they don't take any debt to get established as you go through the training. You've got the military is a fabulous option to move in and get some experience, get some discipline under your belt and that type of thing. But then there's the kid that goes, hey, I know junior college is right for me. I'm going to get a 2-year degree and then move on from there. Or I know exactly what I'm going to do, like your son would want to be a teacher. Yes, that requires a degree. Then let's get on that track.
Right.
And so being sensitive to that and understanding that is very cool.
Yes.
But now you say your bride, and this is the other side, isn't it? Is how do we navigate when we, a husband and wife have two different experiences in what education means? How did you navigate that? But
just being open, really, about it, and she knew that I did not finish my degree, and obviously knew that before we were married, and so she did see enough in me to say, okay, yeah, I value
you can
this
still
person.
be a good guy,
right? And so I think that was working in our kids' favor for sure. But then just talking about it and being willing to trust them and trust the work that God was doing in them, and know that, hey, we can allow this process. Even if it ends in failure, it's not the kind of derailing their life kind of failure. It's a learning failure. And that's important to embrace that.
Right. Proverbs 22, I think 22:6 says, train a child up in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. Sometimes we think of that proverb as one about faith. And certainly it is about, we're talking about faith. A child will turn back to faith if they drift. Hopefully they never turn from it. But I think training up in the way, if you just stop there and take a look at that, I think that's what mom and dad really lay the groundwork. You're you're in marriage, you're the closest thing to a visible relationship with Jesus the Christ in the flesh. So your kids are seeing that,
Right.
and then how you lean on each other and lean into your kids and what their unique giftedness is. That's how you're training them up in the way. Is to I know one of the biggest challenges, well, not one of the biggest, I guess it's one of the challenges dads face are helping kids understand their gifts, right?
Yeah.
And how did y'all do that? How were you in sync with knowing that one son was a creative guy and the other guy was more of a hardline education guy? I mean, how do you read that, evaluate that in your kids?
It was probably hard at first. You see what they're passionate about, you see where their interests are, right? And you want to encourage them in that. But then sometimes you hey, it looks like they're really passionate about something for all of 10 seconds, or maybe a year or something before that switches, And so you got to give a little space, little time to see what really grows, right? And so one thing I looked for and continue to look for with our younger sons is seeing where that passion is and seeing how it works through the test of time and through the tests of the mundaneness. Are they still passionate about it when it's not all flashy and exciting and new, right? When it is hard, when it is requiring sacrifice from them, are they still all about this thing? And then encouraging them in that, I think, has been one of the big deals. And but sometimes with our older son, there wasn't at first any obvious passions that he had. It was like, oh, he liked this, he liked that. But you could see some obvious giftings, right? Hey, he was really academically gifted. And so you give the space and realize, hey, this can go many different ways. And I can be open to that. He's great at math. That could go into this type of career path, or can go in this type of career path. And, all of them are valid and viable. And so there's just a lot of wait and see in that, and encourage along the way.
That's one thing I felt like as we matured in our marriage, and as when we got promoted to mom and dad from husband and wife, those early years during the teacher season of fathering, we would have the kids involved in something and kind of watch and see where do they kind of take off and what have you. Then during the coaching years, our rule was if you start something, you're going to finish the season.
Exactly.
And then you kind of so that way you knew that if you just had a bad game or a bad day, then you kind of came out of it.
Right.
But I think those 2 seasons prepared us as counselors to say, hey, you remember when you did this, or remember when you saw that, or how you reacted when this happened, that this identified some unique giftedness in you. Yeah. And I think that's where I really tip my cap to you as a dad, is to understand that our real role is to help our kids understand their gifts and then challenge them to take responsibility for those gifts to glorify God, right? Yeah. And so that's kind of where we're at, is that I want to encourage all dads to stay tuned in through every season of fathering. But then as our kids move into those adult years, back off as counselor, let them make some choices, right? Right. And with the idea being that a faithful father is always about empowering their kids to have that kingdom influence in this world. Absolutely. So that's the dad you're called to be, and that's the dad the next generation needs. Absolutely. Jarrad, thanks for the time. Blessing to have you here.
Thank you, sir.